Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network, where curiosity meets conversation. Get enlightened and have fun. Share the experience with friends, family, and anyone ready for thought-provoking dialogue. You can watch our shows on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, or connect with us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts are also available on Libsyn, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other major platforms. Be sure to visit our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for past episodes, upcoming shows, and guest scheduling. And to our listeners around the cosmos, welcome. We're glad you're here. Subscribe, follow, and join the community.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good day, everybody, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. And welcome to Conscious Radio Network's The Séance Podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meckes. If this is your first time tuning in, please click like, subscribe, comment, and also don't forget to follow us or listen wherever you listen to your podcasts. Today, surviving cancer, from fear to unbreakable resilience. Today's conversation is for everyone who's faced fear head-on. My guest today, Glenn Sturm, is a 17-year cancer survivor who's lived thousands of days in treatment and discovered that survival is much emotional and spiritual as it is physical. Glenn will share what truly carries you through diagnosis, uncertainty, and endurance, and why inner strength can change everything. Let's welcome to the Séance, Glenn Sturm.
Thank you.
Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure is all mine, and blessings to you of this journey.
Well, I have been blessed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only way you describe it. So
Yeah.
I'm celebrating life every day.
Exactly. And I don't know how often, I don't say it on every show, but I have said it a lot, and I'm going to say it again, is tomorrow is never guaranteed.
No, I mean, when I got diagnosed, I read this extraordinarily beautiful article about a gentleman who had died from my cancer. And he was thankful because he had 6 months. They gave him 6 months. And he said, I mean, I'm reading this, I'm saying, how could he be thankful for that? Well, he said, I'm unlike my friends who died in Vietnam, or who died from a heart attack, or died in a car wreck. He said, I've got 6 months to make everything right.
Wow.
And to do something to make the world a better place. And that just was the kind of the turning a light on for me. And I said, after that reading that, I said, I will never let cancer define me. So that was the change. It's a great article.
Yeah. Take us back 17 years. How did it start?
Well, I was on my way to the University of North Carolina. I lived in Atlanta at the time, and I was going up there to give a presentation. And it was a big deal because, UNC is a good school. And I, had some alums from UNC who had asked me to give a speech before, but this was the first time my schedule would permit it. And I was really looking forward to it. And I had never seen an ACC basketball game. And that night, they were going to take me to the UNC Clemson game. So it was a great day. So I'm at gate B13 in the Atlanta airport, and my phone rang. And back in those days, in 2009, you'd actually answer a phone if you didn't recognize the number.
Yeah.
So not what you do today. But so I answered the phone, and because I'll have to return the call when I get there anyway. So my doc is on the other end. Now, I used to run marathons and do triathlons. And she was part of the group that, I didn't run with her all the time, but occasionally. But I ran with a bunch of docs all the time. And she said, Glenn, we got the results of the biopsies back. Well, the biopsies had been done in early December. This is 6 weeks later. I mean, they've been doing biopsies for a long time, but nothing ever came of it. And she said, Glenn, we got the biopsies back, and they came positive for lymphoma. And I just said, what? what biopsy? And she told me, she said, we need to come in tomorrow to get additional biopsies. This is serious. And I thought for a second, I said, okay, which one of those jerk friends of mine who's a doctor put you up to making this call just to harass me?
Yeah.
And so I said something like that. And she said, no, Glenn, this is legitimate. It's serious. And you need to be here tomorrow. And I said, well, will 4:00 work? That's the earliest I can get back. She said, yep. So I went back the next day, and the way they treated me was different. It reminded me of something that happened in high school. I went to 4 high schools. And when you were the new kid, I was the new patient because they were a dermatology practice, and I don't think they got that kind of cancer very often. And they did more biopsies, and this time it didn't take 6 weeks to get the results. They were back immediately. And I said, well, who do I get to see? And she said, well, there's only one specialist in Atlanta that treats your cancer. And we'll try to get you an appointment. And I said, okay. So after 2 weeks, I picked up the phone and called a friend of mine, a fellow parent in my son's school. And he was Otis Brawley, and he was the chief medical officer and the chief scientist of American Cancer. And we would text each other sometimes to set up a call. We never just called each other. But this time I called, so he answered the phone and says, Glenn, what's wrong? And I said, I've been diagnosed with cancer. I told him what it was. He said, I'll call you back in 20 minutes. I'm in the middle of something. It turned out he was at the White House. Huh. And so he called me back 20 minutes later and said, the number one doctor in the world for your condition, she used to head this area at NIH, is Dr. Francine Foss at Yale. I've talked to her, and she will see you any day next week at any time. You can get to Yale. And I said, that's different too, because normally you accommodate the doctor, not them accommodating you.
Yeah.
And that's just the way Francine is. Dr. Foss is just that way with patients. She has reserved slots for new patients every week. And I went to see her, and she looked at me and looked at the biopsy results, and she said, it's positive. You've got T-cell lymphoma, and it's aggressive. And we're going to put you on chemo as of right now. So that was the day I started taking oral chemo. So the first year, it was getting used to some side effects. They weren't really bad, but I was on oral chemo. And in December, she comes to me and says, Glenn, the oral's not working. We got to put you on IV. So it'll be 3 days every 3 weeks on IV. And so, I'd done enough research to know that there were normally these sessions, you'd have like 5 rounds or 3 rounds, and that'd be it.
Yeah. And
I said, how many rounds is that? She said, Glenn, with your cancer, we don't talk about rounds. It's just perpetual.
Yeah.
So I was the corporate chairman of a major law firm, had helped really grow it. And I had a great practice doing corporate securities, mergers and acquisitions, just a dream kind of a thing. I made partner a couple of years out of law school, and I was the corporate chairman 7 years out of law school. So I was a senior partner when most kids were just being started to be considered. And my peer partner who ran litigation at the firm came to me and said, Glenn, if you're on IV, we're going to have to start talking about, your future. And so in the middle of 2011, they put me on, or 2010, they put me on partial disability. And a year later, I was pretty much full disability. And so I lost my job. I had good insurance, but I lost my job and everything that defined me.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And the great thing about it is I've learned to celebrate life. I made a promise when I first got diagnosed that I wouldn't let cancer define me. I was going to find a way to celebrate life and to try to make the world a better place every day.
Yeah.
And, I'm doing that more and more these days. I was recently interviewed by somebody, and they had started the Brain Cancer Foundation. And they interviewed me for that group. And she got diagnosed when she was 19. And you can imagine, brain cancer is nasty. And so I talked to her, and I do a lot of photography, and I shoot eclipses, and I write books. And so we were talking for a bit, and it was really evident to me that this is a very genuine person. And she said they were having their annual fundraiser. And I said, okay, why don't you go to my website and pick any picture out on the website, and we'll frame a 4 foot by 6 foot version of it, and I'll give it to you, and 100% of the proceeds go to your foundation.
Wow.
And she just said, are you kidding me? And I said, no, that's what I do. For all of my photography, I don't put a penny in my pocket. 100% of the money goes to children's health issues or brain or cancer-related issues. And it's a way of me giving back. And one of the other things I started after reading that article was having a daily motto, and that is to put a smile on somebody's face every day.
Mm.
And the longer I was at it, the more I got challenged. Okay, so who would be hard to put a smile on their face today? So it always turned out that it was somebody at a call center who's answering your call, who's had a hard day. You could tell it immediately in their voice. So I would do everything I could, all my creativity to get them to smile and maybe laugh. And it's a very important part of my life, because what I've learned is when you put a smile on somebody else's face, you put a big smile on your own.
Mm.
And it makes you feel better about life, and it gives you the ability to work towards actualization and work towards making the world a better place, because it doesn't take much. It takes an effort to do it.
Yeah.
But when you decide you're going to do it, you can do almost anything.
Yeah.
So,
It takes more muscles to frown than it is to smile, and just smiling alone triggers the endorphins in the body.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's but the other thing is this. I mean, people don't understand how responsible you are for your own health, especially when you have cancer. To give you an example of that, at my 5th year mark, my AST and ALT levels started doubling every 3 weeks. That's your liver enzymes.
Mm.
And after a while, they hooked me up with a liver doctor at Yale. And I'm sitting here saying, this is not good, because if I have liver failure, they're not going to give me a liver transplant.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going well. It continued to double every 3 weeks. And so I decided, the docs there started working with people at Oxford in England, trying to figure this problem out. And they couldn't. And so they did biopsies, they did all sorts of stuff. So what I did was I went back and looked at all the changes in my life for the preceding 2 years, whether it was a change in workouts, whether it was a change in projects that I would accept, was a change in medications. And then I ran correlation coefficients on it.
Mm.
Well, it turned out that there was a 96.96, which is 96% correlation between one of the meds they had put me on. They'd take me off of a leave and put me on this medicine to address a pain issue. And so I go back to Yale all smart, right? Because I found a 96% correlation. That's got to be it. And the doctors immediately said, Glenn, correlation doesn't equal causation. And I said, okay. So all the work I did on that was quite a bit of work. They just were kind of being dismissive of it. I said, well, look, we're going to find out if there's causation. And I said, how's that? I said, I quit taking the drug yesterday. I'm not going to take it again. And I said, and if I get better, then there's causation. If I don't get better, there's correlation without causation.
Yeah.
And they kind of laughed at me and said, okay, whatever. Well, 3 weeks later, my AST and ALT levels hadn't changed. 3 weeks after that, they had started going down. And 3 weeks after that, they're back to normal. So it turned out that there was both correlation and causation. And so I quit having to go see the liver doctor because my levels were all normal again. But that was only the starting point, because then we had to figure out why there wasn't a risk factor for that issue in the black box warning labels.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a process of going back and finding the CEO of the company. And I actually had a very fortuitous thing. One of my best friends is a venture capitalist, and he had funded the development of that drug. And so he got me on the phone with the CEO that day. They had done like 40 or 50,000 patients in their studies. And I said, well, did you have anybody on chemo that had liver failure? He said, well, then with 50,000 people, we have something's wrong with everybody. Something goes wrong, but if it's, it could just be spurious data. And so I said, well, could you just check? He said, yeah, just a second. So he on the phone, he looked up the data, and they'd had 3 people with liver failure. I said, were any of them taking this chemo agent? They all 3 were. So here goes another warning in. So, I mean, it wasn't just a black box warning label for that. It was also a warning label for the chemo agent, which I'd been taking. So there were 4 people. We didn't know about people who had not had a problem who were taking that agent. But it's just a warning. So if something goes wrong, you can find it. And that's the first of several of those that I've had to deal with. And I've been blessed with somebody with a good math mind and being able to compute correlation coefficients. And, it's really true. There is a lot of times correlation without causation. But when there is, you can find it and you can change people's lives.
Yeah.
By being responsible yourself. God gives us all different skills. And when you're in a cancer fight, you need to use all the skills that you've been given for positive good, not just for yourself, but for others.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely realize the power of community too. There's a lot of people that I've known that are just loners and they just don't think that the world, that they need the world or vice versa. And it's like, that kind of changes.
It changes immensely. The other thing I've had is I had 5 detached retinas in my left eye. It was like every 90 days I got a detached retina and a torn retina in my right. And they'd do the surgeries and fix them. And then 90 days later, they came back. Same thing. I found an article from the FDA asking all the oncologists in the country if they had any patients with systemic long-term chemo that had an ocular event to report it. An ocular event, a detached retina is clearly an ocular event.
Yeah.
And so we reported it, and it turned out that there was a correlation. It turns out that 5% of the people who go on long-term chemo will have a major ocular event.
Wow.
And so in the cancer team that I've got, I have a world-class retina doctor who checks me every 90 days effectively. Sometimes it's every 6 months, but I try to make it every 90 days.
Yeah.
But that's just part of the team, and you need a team. There's a really interesting series of articles that started coming about 2 years ago about teams and the impact. So I didn't think much about it because when I started, I was a lawyer doing big deals. Sometimes I have 30 to 50 lawyers in a deal, but I have specialists in every area like tax, or state income tax, all sorts of things. So you put a team together. Well, out of the gate, I had some personal issues, and my general practitioner said, Glenn, my internist said, you need to have a psychiatrist because my father had died, my lifelong mentor had died, my dog had died, and I'd gone on chemo. And he said, Glenn, you just need to have someone to talk to. Well, it turns out that Dr. Dorney, who's in Atlanta, she's just a wizard, was just perfect. I still use her today, even though I live in Wyoming. I fly to see her.
Yeah.
But she's special. And I was starting to have sleeping problems and falling asleep during the middle of the day. Well, that's called narcolepsy. Well, everybody's heard about cancer fatigue syndrome, whether they've heard the words or not, but they always know that people on chemo, always seem tired, have no energy.
Yeah.
Well, if you're falling asleep all the time, that's narcolepsy, and there are meds for that give you back your energy. And so it reduces the tendency to fall asleep in the middle of the day. And then there's cognitive CRCI. It's basically chemo brain, where people start forgetting things and having concentration issues. Well, there's a lot of overlap between that and ADD or ADHD. Well, with a psychiatrist, they can write prescriptions for that. And everybody today says, how do you write the books you write, travel all the world, taking pictures? I've had 55 surgeries now and bouncing back so quickly. And that's because I've got the right team of doctors. Well, it turns out that the NIH has published a bunch of things about this, but the preeminent story about this came out in last year, and it was by Williams and Thompson. They studied 179 studies reviewing 56,187 patients, cancer patients. And those people who had a integrated multidisciplinary cancer team lived materially longer. Now, what could that mean? In my case, the projections are showing that I have a 70% reduction in mortality risk. 70.
Wow.
Okay. In breast cancer, it's 14%. But 14% is huge.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is hiring professionals. Well, I mean, there are some people who have a 90% reduction in mortality from this approach. So, I had my own team that I put together. And so then I started doing research on it. And I put together my list of the people who should be on the team, which is different than other people's. It's more inclusive. It has a psychiatrist as the second most important person because they solve my fatigue syndrome issues and my concentration issues. But then it's got people like a dentist, because I didn't realize this, but there's huge side effects, oral, glandular issues with you on certain chemos, and you need people to do it. Then you've got the, retina specialists, because 5% of people have detached retinas like I've had, and I've got those people. Well, the list just kind of goes on. It's 30 total professionals, but my favorite one is the last one on my list, and that is a music therapist. Okay, because music can do all sorts of things for you. And so much of this is psychological, and just having the right attitude and being able to get out of bed in the morning and be, accomplish something. But this whole team concept is astounding. And when you look at, I think it is liver cancer, that the mortality rate's gone down 50% if you've got these groups. But the other thing, which is just as important, is in the studies that I've read so far, and I've read a lot of them, if you're in a silo-based cancer practice, which basically means a solo kind of an insular kind of approach, there's no reduction in mortality. Zero. So think about that. So if you get the team together that works with you, and you need what's called a navigator or a guide who helps you get the right people to help solve your problems.
Yeah.
If you get all that put together, there's between a 14 and a 90% reduction in mortality. I mean, if a drug company created a drug that did that, that drug company its market cap would go up by hundreds of billions, maybe even $1 trillion.
Yeah.
And these are just having the right group of people to work with you. I mean, it just shows you the value of taking hills to climb off the map. Does that make sense? I mean, for instance, you've got oncology massage. I had a physical therapist for 4 to 5 days a week for 10 years, my first 10 years with it before I moved to Wyoming. And now I've got it 1 day a week. But my insurance company paid for 5 days a week of physical therapy. Because my primary physician said, the guy races bicycles, other things, and we got a problem, if he doesn't get this. And so they approved it. And then the important part of this thing is that the multidisciplinary process doesn't work unless there's close to perfect communication amongst the parties. So what do my physical therapists do? Well, my cancer presents itself on the skin and sometimes on the back of my shoulders and things, places you wouldn't see. Well, she would take a picture every time it changed at all and send it to my oncologist. If she noticed a difference in my energy levels, she'd note it and send it to everybody. Okay, that communication is invaluable because you might only see your oncologist every 3 weeks for like 25 minutes, but somebody's with you 5 hours a week, an hour a day for 5 days a week, and they notice a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, you anticipate problems, you get ahead of the problems. And so my next book, which will be out in April, addresses all these issues about the multidisciplinary cancer treatment programs and the teams and who should be on a team. Now, everybody doesn't need every member of the team. Because again, acupuncture, yeah, sure, but hopefully I won't need a hospice anytime soon. But you need to have those people. You need a genetics counselor, an oncology social worker, maybe a pharmacist for sure. Okay, and if they just are in the decision loop, and there is a group email that goes out whenever anything happens by anybody, it just changes everything because you get ahead of issues instead of reacting to them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and NIH has been huge about this, and the American Cancer has been okay with it. The biggest hospitals are starting to do it in a big way. A friend of mine's daughter had metastatic stage 4 breast cancer at 25.
Oof.
And they asked me to find the best hospital in the country. And like everybody, I had, prejudices and biases about who I thought would be the best. But I developed the algorithms to do the searches to see if I could find who was the best for her condition.
Yeah.
And it turned out somebody who I'd never even thought of, and it was the University of San Francisco Medical Center,
Huh.
because they have an extraordinary multidisciplinary team approach, and the results of their treatment reflect that. And so I was able to go back and give the family the statistics and everything, and I've never met anybody from that University or Medical Center.
Yeah.
And so I'm just stunned by how great they are. Now, they've always been a good hospital and a good training center, but they've really embraced this issue, and they're way ahead of a lot of other people.
Yeah. Before we move forward, I am going to bring up your website for those who are watching. They can see it going to scroll on the bottom of the screen. But for those who are listening, where can they find you and what they can expect when they go to your website?
Well, my website is GlennSturm.com. And what you're going to see there is a lot of photography, mostly astrophotography, but also just some other shots that I love. And then books that I've written. Cancer Set Me Free was my first. It was a bestseller. And that was something I didn't expect. But then I've got 2 eclipse books on the site today. Another one's coming because we have an eclipse coming up on August 12th.
That's
total solar eclipse, and it's a sunset eclipse in Spain, which is the best thing to shoot. It's when you do it, it's just unbelievable. And the other thing about eclipses that are unbelievable is that it's always a new moon. And when you shoot an eclipse, you normally find a dark place, but then that night you'll see the Milky Way, you'll see the stars jumping out of the sky in ways that you can't understand.
Wow.
And then, so I've got cancer-related books. My second cancer book will be out in April. It's called A New Hope. And then I wrote a book called Warriors Hate War because I was an Army officer active in reserves for 37 years. And it basically studies all of our military engagements since World War II and why we've only really won one out of it, all those engagements. First Gulf War. And then it was to be out in March, but it's not going to be out in May because the cancer book's very important to get out. Is book 1 of a 6-book series called The Green Murphy Secession. It's my first novel, and it's a 6-book series. It starts with 2 young men who go in the Army Air Corps at the beginning of World War II, and the first 3 books are from that point through when the U.S. bombed Iran in 2025. And the next 3 books are World War III, which are the result of some of the things we've done. And so, that's passion, but I'm a military historian and come from a military family. So I think that book's going to be pretty well done. I'm having it reviewed by a bunch of my friends who are, fairly senior folks to see if I'm missing anything. So, but those are the things I do. And my agents, every agent I've ever met said, Glenn, you can only do one thing and you have to be branded one way. And I said, okay, I appreciate your advice. We'll see if I can do it another way. And so I love what I'm doing. And the thing is, if you're passionate about it, I can write for 12 hours in a day and not even realize I've been sitting down that long.
Yeah.
Because I love it.
Getting that point too. It's like, what? I'll wake up before the sun comes up. And I'll be in the studio, I'll be writing, I'll be putting stuff together, doing art, doing just all this stuff, design. And next thing you know, I leave the studio and it's still dark out. I'm like, wait a second.
That is so spot on. It is so spot on. So, I mean, and one of the things I'll say is, again, especially my astrophotography, I only sell 1 copy of any picture. Okay, so it's 1 of 1, and those all go to charity, and 100% of the revenue goes to charity. I'll actually fly to anybody who's having an auction, an event, and tell them my story and tell them why I do it. And the reason why I do it is at Yale, when I walk into my infusion center, which is Infusion 7, is I have to walk by the children's cancer infusion center.
Mm.
So I see these moms and dads with their little babies who've got cancer.
God.
And it just tears you up. And I sit there and I always say how blessed I am. And they always marvel about how I can have the positive attitude I've had with all these years of chemo. And I said, hey, no, it's celebrate life every day. Put a smile on somebody's face every day.
Yeah.
And then remember, we must all give up hope for a better yesterday. We can't change the history. We can change the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you learn that and you decide you're going to make the world a better place, we can all do it. And literally, if everybody just tried to put a smile on somebody's face every day, that's going to change lives.
Yeah.
And eventually, if you know the person, you do that enough, they're going to say, well, you always are so positive. Why? And I said, you'll say, because if I put a smile on somebody's face, I end up with a smile on mine. And if you do that, you're going to make somebody's life better.
Mm-hmm. Paying it
and
forward.
If you make one, you're paying it forward. If you make somebody else's life better, you're going to make your life better. And then when you face problems like this, like you've got, you'll be fine. And there's another thing about it is people sometimes have a very negative reaction when something like this happens. Okay, so instead of being negative about it, what have you done to master the subject?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go master the subject, because that'll help other people. Because when you find out that a liver issue was caused by a drug that a lot of people take for pain,
Yeah.
or a chemo agent caused the eye problems that they weren't because you were older, you're helping others by mastering it, but you're also helping yourself. Because an educated patient is a better patient and a more compliant patient, because you're going to do the things you're told to do once you see why you're being asked to do them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the other point on this is the caregivers. My caregivers are 2 golden retrievers.
Yeah.
And they're 2 wonderful things. And I've got 3 kids, and my youngest is my 20-year-old-ish son, who's extraordinarily talented. But he's kind of like I was when I was that age. He focuses on his work, and that's it. But my 2 daughters, who are both very successful businesswomen, they look out after their dad, and they're my caregivers. And so the thing you've got to worry about when you've got a caregiver is, what are you doing to help take care of the caregiver?
Mm.
Because nobody ever focuses on a caregiver.
No.
Now, some people talk about it, but the caregivers have they have the worst piece. Everybody wants to know how I'm doing, right? But they know, with my 2 goldens, they know not to ask. But if you've got a spouse that's your caregiver, or a child that's your caregiver, what are you doing? What are you doing for them? What are people doing for them to help them being able to compartmentalize it and move through their life, understanding that this too shall pass.
Yeah.
And so and we don't do enough for them. We just don't. A lot of people put in a lot of effort into it, but there's a children's cancer foundation in Atlanta that's called Curing Childhood Cancer. And they take care of the mom and dads in ways that are just special. They understand it.
Mm.
And the CEO there, it's not the biggest foundation, but the CEO there is a former lawyer. Well, I guess she's still a lawyer, but she doesn't practice. But her son had cancer in the womb 20 years ago, and he's still alive.
Wow.
Yeah. So there are lots of these cases that you can find, these outliers. And that brings to another subject. I asked my principal oncologist about 6 months ago, are y'all studying the people who are the long-term survivors and identifying the reasons they're the long-term survivors?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something they really do, because because they are surviving. That's not a new drug. And so the pharmaceutical companies, pay for a lot of the development, but learning why you're a long-term survivor is critical.
Yeah.
Because that means you might be able to get other people to be long-term survivors. And that's just the wonderful thing. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, man.
No worries, man. That's as what that's what the stage is for, my friend. Absolutely. That's what it's about. There's times that I don't say a word. I don't have to. It's your story, man. It's your story, brother.
Well, Well, I don't think this is my story. I think it's our story. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
and everybody else. I mean, so when people are newly diagnosed and go to Yale, for some reason, and we don't talk about this, for some reason, almost it seems like 80% of the time that I'm there getting my infusion, there are these 4 pods, you
hmm
know, that share a room, but
yeah,
you got screens and stuff. But whenever there's a new person getting chemo for the first time, it seems like they're with me
mm,
and in the pod next to mine. And maybe it has something I talk too much, but when people ask me how long I've been on chemo, I said, well, I'm in my 18th year now of continuous chemo, over 6,200 days of oral chemo, and over 650 now. I think it is 650 days of IV chemo. And
yeah,
they just look at you and they just say, huh? They say, you look great. And I said, yeah, I am great. I'm blessed.
yeah,
Yeah. Then I use my military lines. I wasn't born in Somalia, and I don't even have to visit there anymore.
yeah,
So, you just get a good laugh about it. And then, just say, look, it's all, but 90% about this is your attitude.
hmm
And have you decided you're going to climb the hills? Have you decided you're not going to let cancer define you? Because when you make that decision, the hills get a lot shallower.
yeah,
And people ask me, there's one of the things I always tell people that's kind of ridiculous, but I am blessed to live in a state like you do that doesn't have a state income tax.
mm,
And so I lose about 7% of my year to chemo treatments and surgeries, but not recovery, plus recoveries from surgeries on top of that. Well, that's like having a state income tax. So, I can't leave it because I still have it.
hmm
But, it's not, if you look at it that way, it's not that big of a deal. But the other thing is when you're well treated, you very rarely get sick.
yeah, yeah,
So if you figure out the state income tax and not having colds because because you get all these wonderful meds, then you have the same productivity level, or have the potential for the same productivity level as the most productive members of society. And then you can be passionate, about something. And
yeah.
once you're passionate about something, it changes everything.
I've been hearing lately. I'm not sure if you've heard it yet. I don't know if it's true. I mean, I've seen it. I don't believe anything on social media. I've yet to see it on regular news, but
Okay.
a word around the campfire is that Russia and China are saying that they have come up with, after many, many studies, a vaccine that completely eradicates cancer.
I
That'll
I absolutely do not believe that.
I don't either.
And here's why. Well, here's the reason, though. I mean, if you look at cancer, and I'm trying to pull something up, if you look at cancer, there's probably several thousand versions of it.
hmm
Okay. So how could a single vaccine eliminate all those things?
Right.
All those things that are trying to kill you?
hmm
Well, I mean, if it is, God bless. I mean, let's celebrate it and move on. But it sounds to me more like social media stuff.
Oh yeah.
But then again, remember what I just said about the survival rates. And I'm going to try to pull this thing up, but if you look at the survival rates, I mean, mine went. My daughter was told that I had 2.5 years to live.
Geez.
Okay, now I put my own team together right away, so I've had my own team in my 18th year, and I was recently told that my risk of mortality is reduced by 70%, and that I'll live another 30 years. Yeah, and on average,
Yeah.
but it means I'll be over 100.
That'd be cool.
Okay. Well, it'd be great, and then it'd mean I'd also might mean I've been on chemo for 50 years, which would be probably a record. But it's not a record I necessarily want to maintain. I'd
Right.
rather find a cure. But
Right.
just I mean, it's just when I first saw these statistics about the reduction in mortality rates, I said this can't be right. Okay, and there are a lot of naysayers about it because whenever you do something great, there's going to be naysayers about it.
hmm
But it's just compelling. I mean, you're seeing study after study studying 50,000 or 40,000 cancer patients, studying, different types of cancer, and you've got the NIH, writing about it. And then you've got organizations that have vested interest for it not being that good. Because if it's not that good, okay, so if silo practices don't have the results that multidisciplinary ones do, well, I live in a town where you really only could have a silo practice.
Mm.
So does that mean everybody here should get their work done somewhere else? Well, maybe, but maybe it means that the local hospital here needs to find the components of the teams that they can have, and then find a way to affiliate with somebody else to get them.
Yeah.
But the solo practitioners don't like this concept because they lose power. I think the most important person in this whole arena is not the oncologist, it's the navigator, which is a nurse. Okay, her job is to make sure you get everything scheduled, and then addresses all of your issues that you're facing. The psychological, the scheduling, the need, you may, your muscles may get cramping easier, which means you need a massage therapist, or you need acupuncture, and they arrange getting those people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's why would somebody think that a doctor who has so much to learn every day in an area that's changing so fast could anticipate every physiological and psychological need you would have while you're fighting this war?
Yeah.
They don't have the time for it.
No, they don't.
So so you need a team, but you need a quarterback on the team or a coach on the team to help you get to the right places. And it's critical. Now, I was my own for a long time. And then I had a problem, which I'll write about in the book. And that is, I had a tumor on L3 on the root nerve, which was causing extreme pain. And we didn't have adequate communication amongst the doctors.
Yeah.
And they wrote a prescription for me that put me into a comatose state, and I almost died.
Wow.
And okay, so I'm the guy who's lived forever. I almost died because of a mistake that was so preventable, it was unbelievable. And what happened? Well, my daughter was trying to get me on the phone for 4 days, and they know me. I love talking to my girls, and I didn't return a single phone call. And then all of a sudden, my phone was going into voicemail instantly, which means my battery was dead, or the phone was turned off. So she had a friend come to my house and knock on my front door. And I was sitting in a chair. I hadn't had anything to eat for 4 days, and hadn't had anything. I was dehydrated as could be. And it was all caused by a prescription drug, which called a multifactorial drug interaction, which almost killed me. Because the doctor who prescribed it didn't read my history and didn't read my records, because the records on the front page say, if Mr. Sturm has an issue, please immediately call this doctor at this phone number. He's a cancer patient on 31 prescriptions. And they didn't do that. And so I'm lucky to be here, because I had a daughter who wouldn't accept the fact that I wouldn't return her phone calls. And she's right. And so then what happened was that spine tumor, which was diagnosed on an MRI on January 29th of last year, I finally found out about it in June of last year. And then we scheduled surgery for October of last year. Went to Mayo, just an extraordinary place. And they removed the tumor and did some other work. And so hopefully in the near future, I'll be back to my +2 handicap and golf. So, but the point is I was my own navigator, my own problem solver, which means I didn't have a problem solver the minute I was not 100%.
Yeah.
So you really need the navigator, the guide. You need a daughter like my daughter Beth or my daughter Jay, who is not going to stop until they find you.
Yeah.
And more cancer patients are solo, because one of the most common things that happens to people is divorce.
Yeah.
For adults.
Yeah.
So you need all these team people, and no one person is the person who solves all the problems, but you can solve all of them. They're all solvable. Now, the other thing is get testing early and often, because I mean,
that was the question I was gonna ask you, is what originally opted you to, what type of test, and what was it that opted you to get that initial test that
they were doing
found it?
They were doing biopsies for almost 8 years.
Mm.
And my skin in Atlanta, which is a very humid environment, it's kind of crazy. I would get these tumors on my back, and I went from one dermatologist to another. So the first dermatologist, he showed it to me. Our sons were in Little League together, and he said, rule out this T-cell lymphoma agent. In his first biopsy he did for me, and they ignored it, and the markers were there in the original biopsy. So I went 8 or 9 years after that, not diagnosed, which means I ended up with some spots on my spine and some things in my lungs that are still there, but they're not causing me problems because the pathologist didn't do what he told me to do.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was the dermatologist, who's a marathon runner with me, saw a spot on my forehead. And she said, Glenn, do you mind if I biopsy that? And I said, no. Yeah. At this point, I've had like probably 100 biopsies, or it seemed that way.
Yeah.
And so she cut that little piece off my forehead, and that's where they found the cancer the first time. So it's just having good, persistent doctors and solving the problems. And the problems are almost all predictable, like starting with cancer fatigue syndrome and CRCI, which is, cognitive impact, chemo brain, and then, working out. Yeah, working out does help. So I do 30 minutes of Pilates every day, 30 minutes of weights, and 30 minutes of cardio, 6 days a week.
Wow.
And well, I mean, it's how I was a military guy, so a lot of times you didn't have a chance. But back in those days, we didn't have Pilates machines, though. So and people who work out with Pilates, are generally very cognizant of how they look and feel. Yeah. And they laugh at the old guy. So I'm in there doing things, which is fun.
On base, we don't have any machines. We can go out on the obstacle course and just run, grab a bar, lift yourself up a few times.
Well, people don't understand that is you've got all the weight you need to do all the exercise you need. And the one thing that's nice about the Pilates machine is, so when they did the operation L3 and 4, being able to bend over and put your palms on the ground, well, a Pilates reformer helps you stretch the back out and loosen those muscles. And then there's something called a turn, where you push on it and then you turn back like this.
Yeah.
And that's great for golf. It just gives you the rotational element. And so, but those are my excuses for doing it, because it, quote, helps me with my golf. But, we always all need help with our golf.
Yeah.
Our golf games are never good enough. So it's, okay. So I found my survival statistics, and I apologize for looking over to the side, but lung cancer, 40% reduction in the risk of death. Okay. Survival rates increased by 1/3. Then we'll talk about kidney. Well, the mean survival period has gone from 33.2 months to 73.7 months. Okay, which is stunning. Breast cancer is the 14% reduction. Okay, head and neck cancer is a 16% reduction in mortality. Liver cancer, 18% reduction in mortality. And then again, mine was a 70%. So, I mean, when you look at the studies and how big these studies are, I mean, and they're 100% similarity in their performance, and that all the studies show a reduction in mortality rates if you're in multidisciplinary, and all the studies that are cited show no change if you're a silo-based approach to the disease.
Yeah. So,
I mean, one of the things you should always remember, anytime you see a perfect scores in a certain way, you got to say, let's be careful about this, because it is counterintuitive to be perfect like this. Yeah. But when you see 50,000 person studies that are peer reviewed been reviewed by NIH and other big organizations. You've got to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And why is it that there's nothing about this on TV? Because I keep asking the question: has anybody heard about this on TV? The answer is nobody's ever answered yes.
Yeah.
So that's just I'm writing the book as fast as I can get it out.
Mm.
So it's a new hope. I mean, if you reduce the average mortality rate by over 50%, do you think most people with these diseases would like to hear about it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's what podcasts are for.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm finding that out.
Wow.
So how many years have you been doing the podcast?
I've been in broadcasting for 10 years. Well, going on 11 years. I started Conscious Radio Network in 2015. It's been a podcast in this specific format for just over 4 years.
Wow.
So I like it. I like the video aspect because it was radio at first. It was just internet radio. Right. People just hear the show. I'm like, no, I want people to meet the guests that are on the show.
Right. I think that's the right way to do it. And normally,
and just recently, by the time this broadcast, it might be official broadcast, but I just got offered my own television show.
Awesome.
So I will be on
perfect.
4 different major networks on streaming television.
And I've been told that when my book comes out, my PR agent, so you have to understand something. For years, I would not allow my name to be in the newspaper when I was practicing law because I didn't want my kids to see how well I'd done.
Yeah.
And so now everything's the other way. And so I've been told that it looks like that I'll have be an on air with one of the major networks.
Nice.
Yeah, to talk about these issues. And I don't want to profit from it from my perspective because I've profited so much already because of my career. Mm-hmm. But if I can do things to get the resources to the right people, that's what I want to do. That's one of the reasons I give away the art, and we auction it off. And the most fun about that is when we finish the auction, somebody buys it. I put a hologram on the back. There's a hologram with a certificate of authenticity. I sign the back, and then I say, "Do you want to put one of one on this, or do you want me to do it?" Mm-hmm. And they all want to do it themselves.
Yeah.
So it's an original. There's not a copy of it. And the certificate says that I may have a copy of that picture hanging in my house, but it can never be sold. So my kids could have it, but they can't give it away. They can't do anything with it once somebody's bought it. And everybody wants to know why I don't sign the front of it. And it's because I didn't create that. I took an image of it. Somebody else created it. And so I don't want anybody to think I'm taking credit for somebody else's the big guy's creation. It's just a different way of approaching it, but it's the way I like to do it. It's showing respect.
Yeah.
If we all would respect other people's ideas, even if we disagreed with them, we'd be better off. It's like as a military officer, I disagree with Colin Kaepernick's stance and what he did, but I'll absolutely defend his right to do it.
Yeah.
That's my job is to support and defend the Constitution. Well, the Supreme Court has said that that's constitutional. Well, then I can't let people stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's legal under the Constitution, it's legal. Now, the old things about if people don't like a certain thing that Congress has approved, change Congress.
Yeah.
Change the people. Easier said than done, but I mean, we still have to support the infrastructure of our country. It's really important.
Yep.
And respect it. So the other thing about this picture you normally see is, you can see my golden back there, but then normally there's a big fire going in my fireplace this time of the year.
Mm.
And so I enjoy that. It's probably not politically correct to have a fireplace anymore, but I just love fires in the fireplace. So.
Yeah.
And
I'd rather sit around a campfire or out. Yeah, it's. I'd like to have an actual fireplace in the house, but I don't. They built one without it. and I just deal with it and put a fire pit out back.
That's great. Fire pits are wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're wonderful. So, but
Yeah. So before we wrap it up, or before we close the show, again, let me bring up, is this your latest book? It's called Cancer Set Me Free?
that's the first one, and
Okay.
it's the next one. This is the dummy cover of it. See,
Oh,
More
okay.
Than Hope.
More Than Hope. All right. Yeah.
Okay. And, I'm reminded all the time of the great phrase, pardon me for the length of this letter. I didn't take the time to write a short one.
Yeah.
So I'm using QR codes in it
Okay.
a lot. So
Yeah.
I've written 32 memorandums on research issues, and I'll talk about it and how it relates to my treatment and over the years. And then there's a QR code for it. So there's a QR code for all the members of a fully integrated, multidimensional cancer care team.
Yeah.
There's the statistical analysis from the NIH on how this methodology has reduced mortality rates. There's a memo on that. And it just goes on and on. So there'll probably be 20 plus memos. But then most of them are 10 to 15 pages. And you can just click on it. And when you click on it, you'll be able to print it yourself, and you don't have to pay the publisher for it. But people like you who, if you want a copy of my memo for your website, I'll send it to you in a flash.
Yeah.
And you can post it. And, and I encourage everybody who sees it, if they disagree with something, to please contact me immediately. And we've got people who watch my website every day, and they'll contact me about something like that. The other thing about it is this, and that's on the cancer series. Anybody who gets a book and reads it and then has a friend or an acquaintance that's gotten cancer and they give them the book, if they send me an email with their address, their name and address, and just say, I gave your book to a friend who's got cancer, I will sign a first edition, which I've kept, a bunch of them, and send it to you to replace it. And the person who's taking the most advantage of that right now has now gotten their 10th book from me. They've given 10 away.
Wow.
And I absorb the cost of that, because the more the knowledge gets out, the better off everybody is.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been doing the same. I've been kind of doing the same thing. I've given away more of my books than I've sold any. It's just, people just lost, and I was like, here's a copy. Here you go. More for Christmas than.
Well, the other thing is this: is people who are trying to help others, who take the time to write it down. They want everybody to be able to take advantage of it. And it's more about helping others than it is about making an extra dollar.
Yep.
And so a very good friend of mine I think he's published 5 New York Times top 10 bestsellers. And he's the one who kept on telling me, you can't do it the way you're doing it. You have to have a brand.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that the Green Murphy Succession outsells his last book. So I can say, no, you can do it. You can do it your own way. So when that comes out, I'll be out on the road a lot, signing books and things.
Wow.
So
yeah, let me know when you explore Florida and we'll come down here again and maybe meet up.
Well, I'll be down in March, the end of March, because my fraternity's having their 100th year anniversary.
Ooh.
And they convinced me to give them some money about something, and then there's a chance I'll be speaking at the university in April. Yeah. So I'll let you know. Love to see you in person.
Definitely. We'll exchange books. Give you a copy of mine.
Absolutely. And vice versa. Thank you.
Heck yeah. Before we leave, what do you have to offer as a takeaway for our audience today? Words of wisdom.
Okay, there's several things. Only you can stop you. So I'm going to give you an example. My parents, I went to 4 high schools. My dad was an Army officer. My senior year was in my 4th high school. And there was a parent-teacher conference at the end of the second week. And my teacher who was conducting it, and I was there, my teacher told my parents that I shouldn't go to college, I should go to trade school. Okay. And my mom knew I was going to university. And I went to the University of Florida, and my dad knew I was going to do that. The teacher didn't get it because she wanted to try to stop me from doing something. Well, then there used to be a test in Florida called the Florida Senior Placement Test. It was before the SAT was adopted down there. And I got the first perfect score in the school's history.
Whoa.
That was a week after my teacher said I shouldn't go to university. Okay, so don't let other people tell you what you can and can't do.
True.
If you decide to do it, you can do it. You can do almost anything. But there's a second half to that story. Only you can stop you. Well, sometimes you need to stop you because somebody may ask you to do something that isn't kosher. Okay, and you know it's not right. And if you don't stop yourself, who's going to stop it? So it's a thing with two meanings. Only you can stop you. Don't let people tell you what you can't do. Because it's astounding what you can do when you decide to do it. Well, there's another story about this, a funny story. In high school in Ohio, my best friend was an offensive lineman, big, tall, just a good guy, just one of the nicest people I ever met. And we were driving around my Volkswagen Bug one day, and he just slams his palm on the little glove box on the Volkswagen Bug. And I'm like, what was that? He says, it's not fair. And I totally out of context, right? I have no idea what he's talking about. I said, what's not fair? He said, you. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, I'm athletic, but I'm not academic. He said, you're athletic and academic. You're not supposed to be both. It's not fair. And he ended up, I told him at the time, I said, you get along with people better than anybody I've ever met. Everybody loves you. I said, you're going to start a business one day and you're going to do extremely well because you've got a skill to get along with people. And he looked at me. Well, he ended up owning one of the 2 or 3 largest construction companies in Ohio. Okay. If people had told him that he couldn't do it and stopped him, he wouldn't have had the success he had. He wouldn't have changed the lives that he changed. He wouldn't have developed so many wonderful jobs. So if you don't know what you can't do, if you just assume you can do anything, as long as you're willing to work hard enough, it's astounding what you can accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah. It is amazing. I mean, look at this. This show. I like talking to people. That's what I do. I like talking to people. Talk about spiritualism, talk about metaphysics, talk about people's life stories, all kinds of adversity, stuff that pain that we all go through, talk about it, sit down, have a community about it. And, whatever happens to it. And it's growing, becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. So,
yeah, well, that's because you're a great listener and you've got a smile on your face and people want to see you.
Yeah.
And you're changing lives by doing those simple things, by listening and smiling. It's hard for anybody to see somebody who smiles where it doesn't become infectious.
Got that right.
So then there come the positive endorphins.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's amazing.
You're doing a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated. And other than that, I want to wish you well, best on your travels, on your next book, the next chapter of your journey, and welcome back anytime, especially when the next book comes out.
I'll be there when it comes out if you'll have me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just say, hey, sign me up.
So, and by the way, that is my female golden ringing the bell.
Yeah.
Okay, now what does that mean? Does that mean she wants to go out? No, it probably means she's tired of the male goldens bothering her. So she'll get him to go out, and she has peace. So it's kind of funny.
Oh wow.
So, it is.
Oh man,
they're 2 great dogs,
brother. So, and before I forget, thank you for your service, my friend. Thank you for serving.
Well, well, the Army paid for my college with an ROTC scholarship. I had a fellowship because my GRE score while I was in college. So they paid for my master's, my MBA.
Wow.
And then the GI Bill paid for law school.
Woohoo.
So I think I owed a bit to pay back.
Yeah.
What they did for me. But they'll do that for almost anybody. It's the most underutilized scholarship program in the country. Is the ROTC scholarship program.
Yeah.
So it's out there. Sometimes you should get somebody on, or maybe have a panel of people who, like Ray Ordiorno, the former chief of staff of the Army.
Yeah.
He's now passed, but big special ops guy. He's a great man. ROTC. Everybody thinks everybody's from West Point now. So, there are lots of us who are ROTC guys, but they paid for everything.
Wow.
Yeah. How lucky is that? So I'm blessed.
Yeah. Yes, you are. You sure are.
So,
brother, thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
For being on, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day and have a wonderful week. So
Likewise.
thank you so much.
Likewise.
If I can never do anything for you, let me know.
Definitely. Will do. And if I hear anybody that reaches out to the show or myself in regards to, issues that they have finding right doctors or a right team and stuff like that, absolutely send them your way.
Yeah, let me know and I'll jump on it.
Awesome.
Helping others is what my life's about now.
Welcome to the.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the club. We help each other.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful
And thank
day.
you, everybody, for watching Conscious Radio Network's The Séance. And until next time, we will see you then.